and welcome back to my channel. Unless you're new here, and just welcome. My name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal. And tonight, we are going to talk about this really interesting little independent. I like to shine spotlights on independent horror. I'm a big indie horror fan. And this is a movie that I really liked, and it's a little independent horror movie called Awoken. I wish I could find a Blu-ray, but all I could find was a DVD. But I understand. A lot of independent companies, they can afford, a print run of DVDs, and they just don't have the money to do a print run of Blu-rays unless they had an expensive studio behind them or something like that. So I do still love Blu-ray or DVD, but I wish that I could have this on Blu-ray. In any event, Awoken is from 2019. It was directed by Daniel J. Phillips. It was written by Alan Grace and Daniel J. Phillips. It stars Erik Thomson, Sara West, and Benson Jack Anthony. Now, this is a very interesting little, unique little movie, Awoken, Never Sleep Again. I think one of the taglines in the special features was, there's lots of movies about being afraid to go to sleep, but what about movies about being afraid to stay awake? And that's kind of what this is. Now, this movie centers kind of around two issues: demon possession and medical conditions, sleep disorders such as insomnia. So this movie opens up, it kind of shocked me when it first opened up. It opens up, you see a guy about 17 or so, and he's looking very sad, like a tear coming out of his eyes. He's laying in bed, and it zooms in on his face, and then it kind of zooms out. And as it zooms out, you see a figure stand up from the bed beside him, and it's a guy that looks about 40-ish, or something like that. So, I was immediately like, what is this? And he turns around and tells him to, shut up and chill out. Obviously, you know what's going on. The kid is in some kind of orphanage, seminary, Catholic orphanage, something like that. And then you hear the guy hear another boy in another room, like, yelling, and he screams, "I thought I told you to keep, shut the fuck up. I'm going to teach you about keeping quiet," and stuff like that. So he goes out, and he goes into that room, and the other boy that was in the bed follows him. And he gets into this room, and it's a younger kid named Cody, and he's facing away from him, and he's like ripping pages out of the Bible, like really fast. And the guy approaches him, and he turns around, and he's got these white eyes. He's obviously possessed. And this kid is watching him, this take place. And then he starts speaking in like this demon voice, and suddenly the guy just freezes and basically busts a mirror and kills himself. Obviously at the demand of this demon. And the other boy looks really, really shocked, and then poof, we're gone. And we're in a university where we are introduced to Carla. This is an interview, it's like a university lecture, and it's being ran by Professor Robert. And so he's talking about fatal familial insomnia, which is a disease that's very, very rare. but it can kill you, and it's just like where you never sleep until you die. And we then, we're introduced to Carla, like I said, and she's got her best friend, which is Alice. They're in this class. We then quickly learn that she has a brother, and her brother is actually suffering from this serious, fatal familial insomnia. And they're giving up on him at this facility. And they want him to go home. Like, he can just go home and die in peace. You know what I'm saying? And she, of course, does not cater to this very well. She doesn't like this option. And she's, trying to find... So she spent, like, a couple of years now, since it started presenting itself, trying to figure out worldwide treatments, treatments for these sleep disorders and the stuff that they cause. So she ends up being approached regarding her brother, whose name is Blake. She ends up being approached by Professor Robert. Now, a little bit more backstory. Her mother and father, her mother had this disorder and died. Actually, she killed herself and killed her father. And now her brother has this disorder. So, this Robert guy, he tells her about the secret facility that's actually underneath this university, this place. And that's where her mother was treated for this disease. So they basically offer to put him in treatment down there. These, of course, are going to be using non-approved, illegal in the U.S. treatments, drugs and treatments trying to do this. In other words, illegal research. So she agrees to that. Her friend Alice agrees to help, and her ex Patrick also agrees to help. All of them are in this field of study. So they take Caleb and they go down there. They're in this facility where we are also introduced to Angela and Christopher. These are two other people. She's in there being treated for severe night terrors, which keep her from ever being able to sleep for long enough to matter. And Christopher, who also has some kind of, it's going to kill you sleep disorder. So there's the three, there's Caleb and Angela and Christopher, and these are the three things. So as they start, looking through research, trying to figure out how to help Caleb, putting him on these drugs to try to help the situation, there's a scene in which Carla and Alice are studying in sort of like the study room, and she feels a draft behind the bookcase and finds like a secret room, or sort of like a little nook. And in that nook, she gets Alice to help her move the thing. She finds this little room, and in it, she finds a box of files, which also contain videotapes and a videotape recorder. So she gets it out, and they start looking at it, only to realize that these videos include her father's research, trying to help his wife, because her father was like Dr. Robert, was a specialist in this field. So they start watching the videos, and it kind of really freaks her out, because this is her parents. And she wants to tell Professor Robert about it, but Alice kind of talks her out of it and is like, wait a second, this is your parents. He's like another father to you, this Professor Robert. He knows that this exists. Why hasn't he ever told you about them? So that makes them a little suspicious. They continue to do that. We get to see a bunch of scenes where You see Caleb, acting peculiar. He's whispering to someone all the time. The very spooky atmosphere. She'll like walk around the corner and she'll hear him whispering to someone, but then she gets to him, there's no one there. So, it's all very spooky. And at the meantime, she's also studying what happened to her mother by seeing it all on video. They are also find a journal in the box. In the box, there's a journal by a Father Francis who was a priest. So that is where you're sort of introduced, well, not like you haven't already been, but you're sort of introduced to this demon possession thing. So they're looking through it. You see Father, on the videos, you see that Father Francis is claiming that Sara, her mother, was speaking in a demonic dialect, a demonic thing. So he's there. So you've got these two scientists, and then you've got this priest, and they're sort of like at conflict about what's going on here, So we see on the video the patients freaking out. And what's interesting about it is that the stuff that they watch on the video involving her mother and the patients that were in there with her mother, we are seeing it being mirrored by what's going on in real time with her brother and the two patients that are in there with him as it gets creepier and creepier, So, they finally get to the part in the videos where, so there's almost like a tiny found footage element to this film, because you're watching a lot of these videos. Well, it gets to the point where, like, her mother did something, there was like Bible pages all over the see-through mirror, covered it, with using blood to stick them to it. There's lots of really cool scenes like that, and yet they don't know what happened, neither do you. And of course, her brother is getting worse. They end up, there's a really cool scene in which Angela, because she's complained several times about, he's after me, talking about her brother. He's after me. He's always whispering to someone that's not there, stuff like that. Now, she ends up right in front of Carla hanging herself. And this, really freaks her out. There's also an interesting little side note in that Christopher, he doesn't seem to be being affected by any of this shenanigans that are going on. But that's because he is never not listening to his headphones, listening to music on his iPod kind of thing. So he's not, I guess Caleb is not able to get to him because he's not hearing anything. So he's not hearing anything that Caleb is saying. Because of course by this time, with all of these really cool effects and stuff, we have pretty much come to the conclusion that there is definitely a demon possession going on here, and that Caleb is actually possessed by a demon. The demon's name is... Oh no. That's what I get for not following the notes. It's a weird name, like Inuit. Of course, that's like an Eskimo tribe, though, isn't it? Idanen or something like that. But all these demons have to have a cool name. So, and this is all taking place over just 3 days at that. So now that Angela has committed suicide, Alice, she starts saying that, the priest, Father Francis, he has the incantations in the book that he was going to use from his bishop to try to exorcise the demon from Sara back when all of this happened the first time. So Alice suggests that they try to do the exorcism themselves, because all you have to do is have faith and the correct incantations to perform an exorcism. Well, according to them, anyway. So they kind of like, well, we'll do that, but she doesn't really get a chance because Alice is like brutally murdered by this demon. And Caleb is now like really full force exorcist kind of shit going on. Poor Christopher, his damn iPod thing runs out of battery. The battery goes dead, which means that, Caleb can get to him. So they end up finding him dead. Patrick, he doesn't really know what to do. They're trapped down there as well because, they can't get back out of this underground facility. They did, Dr. Robert had called maintenance, and maintenance was going to be coming the next day, or so they thought. So, while all of this is going on, you have the full effects are going on. Caleb is obviously possessed. They know the name of the demon. And they've read all about it in the journal. Alice is dead. Christopher is dead. Alice's death was, oh my God, she just like ripped this big electrical cable out of the wall and stuck it down her own throat. That was very interesting. That was a unique kill. So Chris is dead. They find Blake and Carla start like speaking the incantations against each other. Patrick comes up with a really good idea because, Carla is like, I wish I knew what had happened. They went into that room with her mother. They knew something bad happened to there. And Patrick came up with a really good idea, and that was, well, did you check the video camera? Because they're like, we watched all the tapes in the box. He said, but did you check the video camera? And I actually remember like during that scene, I said it before he did, which was kind of cool. But I was like, check the camera. And he was like, check the camera. And I'm like, I didn't write this movie, so what the fuck is that? But anyway, so they check the camera, and there is that one last tape, and they get to see what Sara had become, and as she killed the father, and then they got to see the big thing, the first big twist. And I had started suspecting it, but the first big twist is that Sara didn't kill the priest. Robert did. This professor guy killed the priest. He was the one that was most pissed that Sara, Carla's dad, Sara's husband, had brought in a priest. So that made sense. And it's like, okay, so this Robert guy, he's a bad guy. He's the bad guy. And he's like, actually, what is he doing? He's like working for this demon or something. So once they figure that out and they confront him, she goes and starts trying to do the incantations on Caleb, and he catches them and tries and stops them. Him and Patrick end up in a big fight where he stabs Patrick to death, knocks her out, and then she wakes up, in this like room full of candles where Robert is doing some kind of ritual. And you're like, what the fuck is going on, man? And it turns out, Robert comes over there and talks to her, and we have the full circle twist, which I really loved the twist in this movie. And that was that, he came up and talked to her, and he started telling her, because she's like, is this all you've got to do with your life? What the fuck are you doing? You're a fucking psycho and all this kind of stuff. We thought of you as another father, and what is this? Well, that made him very angry, and he started screaming at her that this demon saved his life, that this demon helped him. And then we get the backstory, and it takes us all the way back to the beginning of the movie, and that was that boy was him. The boy in the seminary that the dude got up out of the bed with. He was the boy in the room, and he saw what that demon did and killed his abuser. And then the boy, Cody, which shot, kind of like, that was an awful scene, because Cody screamed, "I can't let it back in," and shot himself. So this little boy shoots himself after he got the demon out for a second. Because I guess the demon, jumps out of you, gets into the person, gets the person to do whatever it's going to do, like kill itself, and then goes back into the person it has possessed. So when he had come out and killed that abuser, that's when Cody took the opportunity to blow his brains out so that the demon couldn't get back in. Now, this upset Robert because that demon just saved him from all of this abuse that they had been suffering. So he became a servant of this demon and had ever since been looking for this particular demon, which feeds in this demon resides in the space between awake and asleep. Twilight, I guess you would be. So, and he has to be in there feeding long enough. So that's why he became an expert on sleeping disorders, was because he needed to find people, especially with fatal familial insomnia, which would give the demon long enough to have power. Because the person never goes to sleep. If the person went to sleep, the demon would be excised. So, she manages to get loose after finding all of this out. He had used his mother to try to raise the demon. Now he was using Caleb to try to raise the demon. So he's over here. She manages to get loose, gets her incantation book, that journal from the priest, and poor little Caleb is in the middle. And you have him over here trying to bring the demon out, and you have her over here trying to destroy the demon. So he's trying to bring him up, she's trying to bring him down. And so poor Caleb is back and forth. He's being strengthened by by Robert's. There's no Jonathan in this movie. So Robert is trying, the demon is strengthened by what Robert is saying, and then she'll do hers and it will weaken him. So there's this really cool fight. I feel sorry for Caleb in between. But then there's a fuck up. And that was, you're dealing with a demon here, right? Well, there's a part of the little ritual that Robert obviously didn't understand. And when he said that part, the demon stopped and turned around and looked at him and was like, no one controls me. And Robert started going no, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. Too late. Demon jumps in him, makes him jump onto this giant spike on the floor. It was very cool. Very gross as well. And gets back into Caleb, and then she continues the incantation, manages to get the demon out of him, and then he lives through it, and they wake up. Both of them now are in the hospital, and Caleb is peacefully sleeping, so he's all right. And it goes over to her bed, where she's laying with her eyes wide open looking at the camera, and it zooms in on her, and I kept waiting for her eyes to turn white, right? But it didn't. It just kind of zoomed in on her, and then the movie ended. So I don't know. I mean, you saw the demon go into the floor when she got it out of Caleb. So, I don't know. Is she possessed? I don't know. I'd really like a sequel so you could tell me. But to the movie itself, this is a really great movie, especially if you are into some kind of new, more unique take on the demon possession thing. The guy who plays Caleb was just awesome. Everybody acted fine. The story was really good, especially because, kind of like when I was watching the movie, I was confused the whole way through. Like, what was that intro about? It seemed so out of place, kind of. And then there, when it was wrapped up in the end, and I've seen a lot of movies, as you know, and I didn't see that coming. I was suspecting Robert as being involved with the demon and being the bad guy, but it just never occurred to me, the big twist, and that was that at that intro at the beginning, that was him. So when that occurred, I was like, that's cool. That explains a lot. Because his motivation, you see what I mean? That put such a perfect motivation on why he would align himself and become in league with this demon. He was a young guy who had obviously, like all of them probably, had been being abused by this abuser for quite a while. And this thing, no matter how evil it was, had ended their suffering, had killed their abuser. It's like Charles Bronson coming along and killing the person that killed your family. You're going to be very thankful. So I really liked that addition of a motivation behind why this Robert guy was using these people and killing these people. He was the cause of Sara's death. He was the cause of his friend's death, William, her dad. He was the cause of the priest's death. He was the cause of the other two patients with Sara. He's also the cause of Christopher, Alice, and Angela. And, of course, he murdered Patrick. So he was the cause of all of this. And why would you be that evil and align yourself with evil like that? And that gave it such a perfect motivation. So that was Awoken. It is a very, very interesting little indie horror movie that you should have in your collection, especially if you enjoy possession movies, demonic, supernatural. I really loved the possession effects. Caleb was very, very creepy looking. The possession was not too much, and it was not too little. It was done very well, very scary looking when he's possessed like that. And reminded me of Talk to Me, the way they look when they're momentarily possessed, except a little bit more evil, a little bit more demonic. But there was no CGI in this movie except for that exorcist, that moment in the exorcism where the demon actually comes out of him. And to be quite honest, they got their money's worth on it. It didn't look cheesy or bad or anything. It looked pretty good. So I definitely give this a thumbs up. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. I really, really liked this movie. It is a great little indie demon possession movie mixed with this medical stuff and very interesting kills. Not a huge amount of blood and guts, but then again, you didn't really need it because what was there was there. And very good, yes. So that was 2019's Awoken. And I will be back with my next video. Love you, miss you, bye. That is a... You're talking about a demonic video and a little spider comes down off the ceiling and lands on your hand. What's up? Love you, miss you, bye. Yes, I don't mind spiders. Well, I mean, it's not a black widow or anything. I'll see you in the next. Ta-ta. Always remember, never forget you're a very, very special person. And I will see you in the next video. No matter what anybody tells you. They're lying if they tell you different. Even if you are not possessed by this demon. I could give you his name if I could find it. As you notice, I didn't really follow my notes. I just hit all those points from memory. Of course, the fact that I just watched it last night for the first time might have something to do with that. But what is his name? I know I wrote it down, but I don't see it. But you know what? Just buy the damn movie. It's not that expensive. It's pretty cheap. You can get it. eBay. Very easy. Hamilton Books probably has it. Awoken. Loved it. Very nice. See you in the next one. Bye-bye. I just didn't want to leave you.